Radical Red is probably the poster child of competitively focused ROM hacks, and we've just been given the new 4.1 update, adding in the Paldean expansion Pokemon like Archelodon and Ogerpon. While I wouldn't say a ton has changed here, there were a lot of Pokemon I felt were viable during the 4.0 best team that didn't quite make the cut, but I want to try to showcase some of those instead. So today, let's try to make the best Rain team for Radical Red's new 4.1 version. I'm pretty confident about the investment that Rain can make in this run, especially to ease the later stages. But if you want to learn about other types of teams that can still perform in Radical Red, let me know down below, as there's a lot of other options, such as Weathers, a more vanilla 4.1 best team, or even a version where you finally unleash some of the legendaries in this game. If you're interested in more Radical Red best team content, let me know down below. But for now, let's start off with our starter choice. Despite building a Rain team, I feel like we should clear our very obvious grass starter candidate out of the way early on, so I ended up actually choosing Sprigatito. I should probably mention that while I chose Sprigatito for this portion, after doing a lot of our later egg encounters, I came to the conclusion Mudkip was probably the optimal starter here. This didn't have any meaningful impact other than the Pewter City egg took significantly longer for my particular journey, because I forgot about the Paldea starter egg I could have gotten with far greater odds. There won't be any important impact that happens based on your choice of Mudkip or Sprigatito for things like rival fights. So for anyone besides me, you should really be choosing Mudkip as your starter. Regardless, we did manage to start with Sprigatito, and it is a fairly potent option still in 4.1. Not much has changed that makes this choice less favorable, as you're still fairly powerful against a lot of the early game, such as Brock or Misty, while being a phenomenal late game spikes option going into battles like the Elite Four. When you evolve this into Meowscarada, you'll gain access to a powerful dark type that can breeze through most opponents, such as Sabrina and Agatha with ease, due to your powerful Stab knockoff. But with your ability Protean, you can take advantage of Stab on a wide array of other moves, such as Triple Axle and Play Rough, to widen your strong matchups to fit your every need. It's pretty hard to truly pinpoint a moveset for Meowscarada as the definitive best, as the point of utilizing this is to tailor your coverage around matchups. And unlike on our vanilla team, with Rain, that will become a lot more important to handle key weaknesses. You're still pursuing items like Focus Sash or Life Orb once you gain access to them, and investing your spread with the Jolly Nature and Max Attack and Speed for a majority of opponents you'll encounter. But early on, I found myself also using Adamant a lot, as his speed is meaningless until you've beaten the first few gyms. For any good Rain team, it's crucial we have a strong Drizzle option, and Radical Red still allows us the option of Pelipper. Early on, we can actually obtain Wingull on the route south to Pallet Town through the tall grass encounters that Radical Red allows us after we get our Pokédex. Wingull itself is a pretty okay option as a backup super effective means of damaging Brock, but you won't get much out of it until you get access to Mega Swampert. This Pokemon is mostly here for two reasons. The first is as your Drizzle Pokemon. With Drizzle, Pelipper can clear through opposing weather, and considering there are bosses that otherwise set their own permanent weather, this is a big deal. Pelipper is the easiest means of stopping opponents like Lorelei and Blaine from otherwise becoming genuinely overwhelming, and it arguably makes two of this game's strongest trainers seem like they're no-named opponents. For your moveset, you'll utilize Roost, Hydro Pump, and Hurricane for certain. You can make your fourth move a few different options, but I chose Brine as a less volatile water-type move than Hydro Pump. When you're below half, this can be a great last-ditch effort to guarantee an opponent for more damage than Hydro Pump. If you prefer shying away from the second Water Stab though, Defog is a strong choice here as well to remove hazards for later entries on our team, as this team does have a decent weakness to Stealth Rocks. I changed my items a few times between Sharpbeak, Mystic Water, and Damp Rock, but by the end of the adventure, it was pretty exclusively Damp Rock, as I no longer needed Pelipper to function as its own damaging piece. I tried going bulky at first, but I realized that Timid Pelipper was a far better option to outspeed a lot of the more average speed options. For players who haven't specifically played the 4.1 version of Radical Red, this new version introduced players to a PAL, If you catch Sentret on Route 2 and evolve it into a Furret, you can make a trade on Route 2 past the Diglett's cave entrance for a Chillet, which is a new Dragon and Ice option. This is a pretty monstrous option that'll change the game for this team, with the ability Refrigerate being powerful for your normal type moves that now have a boosted Ice stab. I found this to be pretty useful with Quick Attack and Double Edge, but as the game progresses, you'll gain access to extreme speed right before the Elite Four. By your endgame, the best moveset will for sure be Sucker Punch, Extreme Speed, Dragon Claw, and D-Dance, with the Never Melt Ice option in order to boost your extreme speed damage even further. This will help a lot with grass and dragon types that would otherwise wall your Rain core, and it genuinely is probably one of the biggest things making Rain work without legendaries. So Chillet is a pretty dangerous option, but what about Sentret? I actually found Sentret to be the biggest reason the early game Falconer fight was manageable. Because my team going into this consisted of Sprigatito, Wingull, Mudkip, and Furret, I was able to actually overcome this otherwise very uphill battle. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Furret was probably the biggest reason I didn't need to find some sort of 7th Mon for this team just to handle the Falconer battle. Chillet itself, though, will be useful for a wide array of matches, especially when it comes to battles like Claire, Lance, and the Rivals team at the end. But it's really hard for a Dragon and Ice type not to thrive in a Pokemon game. As I described earlier in our portion about Sprigatito, Mudkip is the actual optimal starter choice here. For our run in particular though, I managed to obtain it through the pewter eggs. So if you for some reason are truly partial to starting off with the cat, you'll still get Mudkip before any noteworthy fights. Mudkip is a crucial piece for our run. This is our team's best wall breaker, and it's the central piece of our team today. With the water and ground typing, this is the only Rain Sweeper besides Seismitoad that will handle electric types for this composition, though it's far better suited for this game due to your higher attack and better bulk. Mudkip is a pretty useful option from start to finish for this run, due to only having a weakness to grass types, and it's pretty hard to find a battle this evolution line can't provide some form of value. As for a moveset, I recommend Flip Turn, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Ice Punch, as this essentially gives Swampert the best odds of performing well. You can utilize options like Rocks if you want, as Swampert's a strong bulky option anyway for Rain. But I found the option for 4 attacks to provide higher value in most battles than taking a turn for hazards. While you'd assume a Swift Swim option would look into investing in speed, I actually went max HP and max attack, as Swampert's bulk was usually a better tool in most games. While I could utilize the speed to outspeed faster Pokemon in Rain, the bulk will always provide value for this Pokemon even if I can't keep up the Rain for enough turns. This was a big reason options like the Champion's Miraidon didn't sweep our team, so I can't recommend bulky Mega Swampert enough here. Let's look into a strong Fire type to round out our Fire Water Grass core, as this should hopefully help with giving us a backup response to options like Erica's Gym. I found that despite the high evolution level, obtaining Larvesta was a pretty big deal here. Larvesta was a pretty difficult option to justify, but I was able to still get some value out of matchups like the Game Corner Giovanni battle, since the access to Flame Body was great for burning Mega Kangaskhan in this battle, which at least helped our other partners out. Once you obtain Volcarona though, most trainers will quiver in fear at how terrifying of a sweeper it can be. Once I evolved Volcarona in time for Sabrina's gym, I was able to teach it Heat Wave, Giga Drain, Quiver Dance, and Roost, which stayed as my moveset until after Lorelei, where I replaced Heat Wave for Fiery Dance. Heat Wave gave us a strong option to handle the double battles this game has, and Volcarona was an incredible win con because of it. Volcarona was essentially going to be our team's backup win condition if we weren't able to get up Rain, since most teams with ways around our Rain, like Lorelei, were pretty handily beaten down because Volcarona got up a couple Quiver Dances to sweep her entire team after Pelipper stopped the Veil from going up by switching in. Volcarona is a pretty big deal for this team, and it easily is the best fire type you can add here. For our final Mon, we have a bit of a journey to make, as we need to beat Sabrina to gain access to Route 13's Raid Den. I think this is the first time we're using a Raid Den to encounter Pokemon, But thanks to the wish pieces, you're able to obtain access to Duraludon, which at level 50 evolves into Archaludon. Archaludon is our strong switch into opposing rain abusers, and it was a pretty powerful defensive backbone. I will say, there were a few times I almost considered swapping this for Aegislash, which, while it is less suited to switch into Rain Sweepers, it's still a generally good backbone on a team that has options to reduce damage from incoming fire types. I was able to outmaneuver a few fights like Giovanni's Game Corner fight and the Sabrina gym that would have otherwise benefited greatly from the presence of Aegislash, so I ended up being patient and awaiting my terrifying Steel type instead. If you struggle with either of these battles though, consider grabbing Aegislash from the Game Corner in Celadon, as it's still a great defensive steal here. For my moveset, I utilize Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon, Electroshock, and Body Press, with the ability Stamina and a Citrus Berry. Archaludon was able to pressure plenty of opponents like Claire and the Elite Four, but he usually didn't seem to be the most dominant option on our team. Archaludon's role here was mostly just a strong 6 Pokemon that fills our strong Steel type need well. And thanks to Electro Shot, it happens to also borderline fill the role of a good electric type as well. In tandem with Pelipper and Volcarona, this did a great job filling in our defensive holes on this team, and provided up a more offensive wall, unlike a Pokemon such as Aegislash that has to give up defenses to deal proper damage to opponents outside of toxic sets. Overall, I think Rain was a pretty terrifying archetype for this game. While I will say the early portions of the game are definitely a struggle, a lot of the more terrifying opponents get handled with very little effort at all due to the synergy having Rain provides. When most bosses by the end of the game have permanent field conditions, having an option to manipulate them in your favor, like Drizzle Pelipper, is genuinely one of the coolest ways to make this game have to play into your hands instead of the other way around. But what did you think of Rain in Radical Red? Do you think it's as good as I'm portraying it? Let me know in the comments below if you think Rain is a strong option for these games. And while you're on your way down there, consider subscribing, as I plan to make plenty of other best team content for games like Radical Red in the future. I already have plenty of other Radical Red guides and top 10s coming soon for the 4.1 patch, so if you liked today's video, I can't imagine you won't enjoy those as well.